And I'm going to mute everyone except for Walter. I can see some people when they want to be recognized. Other folks that don't have an image up indicate somehow.
Those who are on Zoom, if you click on participants, and if you're on a laptop, it's the bottom of your screen. I'm not sure where it is on an iPad. If you click on participants, that box will open, and at the bottom of that box that lists the participants, you can see raise hand. And when you click that, the moderator will see that you want to speak if you're muted. I didn't look to see if I was muted when I said all that.
Nice tip, Walt.
Comes from being on 5 or 6 of these a week.
I see you got to the barber shop well.
I did. And I called her up the day she opened up, and it took 3 weeks before she's there's a lot of pent up demand out there.
I think so.
All right, I'm going to call the select board to order. Welcome everybody on Zoom and welcome everybody on YouTube. I'm on. Can you hear me, Owen?
I can hear you. I put myself on mute. Yep.
All right. Okay. Are there adjustments to the agenda? I think you kind of have a couple, don't you?
The only adjustments to the agenda was some items of communication that we received recently that should maybe be discussed. So it would just be under communications unless other members had changes.
Okay. Cheryl, Jan, any ads? All right.
No.
Sorry.
No adjustments.
None for me either.
So public comment for items not on the agenda. I'll give a second or so for anybody that has to chat in to do that.
And while we're waiting, YouTube indicates that we have 5 people watching. Again, there's that 20-second delay. So if folks have a more substantive comment than they want to make, please just type something in that says, I have comment, and then we'll kind of pause. Oh, and then 2 people left. Oh, 3 people left. They're all bored now. Penny has her hand up, Walter.
Penny?
Here we go. I'm sorry. I didn't know how to unmute, but I wanted to let you know about the roadside cleanup. I can do that later under departments or do it now.
Let's do it now. It's the top of your mind.
We have set the date as Saturday, June 20th. And I've spoken to the transfer station and DOT and all the concerned parties about that. So I will go official with it tomorrow. The Historical Society is going to sponsor the Village and Dublin Road this year. There will be bags and safety vests and disposable gloves available at the library out on the porch all day Saturday.
What time are you going to start it?
8 to 3.
Owen, would you put that on your mail list?
I will send him an announcement that he
Ah.
could send out. That would be
Okay.
great.
Yeah, I wrote down a note, but I'll wait to hear from Penny and I'll put that
Yeah,
up on the
good.
website and on the listserv.
Okay, thanks, Benny.
Thank you.
Okay, recruitment. How are we gonna we have some new hire firefighters to speak with, or are we not gonna do that?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep,
All right. I think, Owen, I can't see who else is on. There should be a Wilfred or a Connor maybe.
No, we don't have any of the 4 folks on right now.
That could be, Walter, I don't know if you can still hear me, but that could be because the Zoom thing I gave him this morning or last night was for the 6 a.m. one, and then I quickly this afternoon tried to get him the 6 p.m. one. I thought Wilfred was going to make it, but if they're not on there, then I guess we'll have to do it some other time. But I have 4 new applicants, a Wilfred Hendren, who lives in Rockland. He used to be on Friendship Fire Department over 15 years ago. He just moved back from New York, now living in the south part of Rockland. I have a Connor Knowlton, who is a junior firefighter. It's actually the son of Alan Knowlton. He was going to Creehaven tonight with his father, but then said he was going to be around, but might not have got the right package for the Zoom meeting. And the other 2 is a Hannah Flackshart, who's actually on the ambulance for a per diem. I didn't know if we needed to do another meet and greet with her or not. If so, we can take care of that. And the other one is a Charlie Weedman, who's also a per diem for the ambulance as well and has done the meet and greet. Charlie lives out of Hope, but works in our area during the daytime. He's also on Hope Fire Department. Any questions?
no, I see Hannah a lot. So I don't think we need to walk her through this drill a second time. Probably not the other one either, unless my colleagues want to. But yeah, we'll set something up for the others. What does that bring your staff level to, Brian?
I want to say 20, 18 to 20. It leaves 4 lockers still empty. I have 2 guys that are out on medical leave from their own personal reasons. They're not responding right now, but we're probably 18 to 20 at the most right now. I know I've got another one that'll be joining in October. That'll be my son once he turns 16. So that'll put us up 1 more spot. Just happened once all this COVID started happening, and once we got things straightened out with Bureau of Labor on the hiring process and the steps, we were doing a step that we don't need to do anymore. So now we got 4 of these applications and had the meeting with them and interviews last night with the officers of the department.
Yeah, what was the, Health Connections absolved us of some process as part of pre-hire?
With all this stuff going on, I contacted Mike LaPlante from Bureau of Labor and asked about the pulmonary testing that we've been doing ever since I've been on the department for 28 years. And I was informed that our department style, since we are not a paid full-time fire department, we do not have to do the pulmonary fit test prior to hiring somebody. We fill out that's under state law, we have to fill out a medical questionnaire yearly, which we do. And if the doctors at the Health Connections say, hey, I want to speak to firefighter A because they answered a question that raised concerns for them, then they go in for the test if need be. Other than that, we don't have to do that test. It's been an extra step that I never knew. It was always in place prior to me taking over as chief. So we're not doing that step anymore unless the doctors say, hey, they need to come in.
Amy, do you guys have a spirometer? No? It's all right. That would save you, Brian, anytime you had to go into the pulmonary lab at Penn Bay, which is a little bit more elaborate than a battery operated spirometer.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Brian. We'll set something up for your other two folks.
Okay. We meet again on July 6th as a department for truck night. So, I mean, however you want to work that out. We're not doing training in June. We're going to hold off one more month.
Okay. All right. So, and Ellen is retiring, but not really.
Did you all want to make a motion to approve those two fire or accept the recommendation from the fire chief for the two that you have come across?
I'll entertain that motion if somebody wants to make it.
Yeah, I'll move that we approve Hannah Fleshard and Charlie Weedman for hire by the fire department.
Second.
Any
Waterman.
discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Jan?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Walter is aye. Welcome to Hannah and Charlie for another assignment. Ellen is retired. When is it effective? When she off the books or whatever, Amy?
June 1st.
Oh. So
Great, thank you.
long years of great service to us, and I'll send out a thank you from the board as now that I've gotten some information to put in the recognition, and I guess she's going to help you with some other stuff. Is that right?
Yes, she's still going to help with some other stuff.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay. How are our finances, Owen? I have a couple questions, but why don't you give us the treasurer's report as part of this?
Sure. I mean, as we're all aware, it's definitely a different and kind of off time right now. All things considered, especially as it relates to the 2019 budget, we're not in horrible shape, but it's not exactly where we want to be. We have seen some increase in the auto excise that's coming in. The 30 days grace period starts June 11th when the governor lifts that emergency proclamation. So we anticipate some additional revenues coming in at that time. We've continued to get the revenues that we get from the state is the monthly revenue sharing anyway. Like I indicated, sometimes we get these revenues a little bit later in the year, and so that kind of throws numbers off a bit. I mean, expenses are up a little bit as it relates to some of the COVID stuff, but not a significant amount. Everyone's still trying to do their best at minimizing non-essential purchases and items like that. But yeah, I mean, it's not like I noted in there, the bigger concern has been the TANs and the funding sources that we have growing at a rate that's slower than the school payments have been recently. We again reviewed those today, and I'll probably be touching base with the RSU to talk about our payment plan and see if we can't come to a good solution for both parties, to make sure that we leave enough in our reserves and trusts to feel comfortable, but still not put the school in a bind. And then, like I indicated at the end of the treasurer's report, really transitioning to collecting taxes twice a year will help us with that aspect specifically.
so the budget that was passed, the state budget last year is 2 years. They do a 2-year budget, the state of Maine
Correct.
does. And then they did a supplemental. So that increase to state revenue sharing would start this July 1st. Or did it start last July 1st?
No, it started, and I say this with just some hesitation. I don't want to speak as though I know exactly in great detail, but we have seen increases in the revenue sharing. The supplemental that they do, because it is a 2-year budget, they will look at how that first year went and revenue forecasts and expenditures of the state, et cetera. And then if, revenues are higher than anticipated, they have some additional ability to put money towards certain items. That's typically why they do those supplementals, or they maybe deferred something in that first biennium budget. But we have seen the increase in revenue sharing. I guess I don't know if that's supposed to increase again, if it was spaced over a 2-year, a certain percentage 1 year and then a second percentage in the second year, but
Yeah, and it's impossible to ascertain that from the chart.
from like the treasurer's
Yeah,
chart, or yeah, and just to be, I guess a little caught off guard that the treasurer's department at the state can kind of fiddle with things and then say, sorry, react accordingly. That's the state. We don't really have control over that.
that's what happened with the interest for unpaid taxes, right?
Correct.
Okay. Jan, Cheryl, any questions on the current financial outlook? Okay,
No.
so I think the part of going forward, just to add to what Owen said, obviously won't happen this year, but right now the budget that the superintendent of schools has submitted will increase our assessment by $31,000 over year over year, which is probably the lowest that we'll ever see in our lifetime again. That said, the rate of increase of school budget is straining our ability to. It's been running faster than the growth of our surplus. So as everybody knows, we borrow from ourselves and issue TANs in anticipation of taxes. So this straightening that out and not running the risk of more and more TANs is one of the underlying reasons why we're entertaining going to a changed fiscal calendar and twice a year collections. But we need to do some more reach out. I mean, it's on that, and before we go forward, and also have our ducks in a row. So, but that's a good piece of underlying rationale and logic for making the change, which is it helps our cash flow immensely.
Great.
Okay, so I see that the candidates are here.
Yep, and the chief just came in, and so I think he is about to jump back on. Yet he's unmuted, so both Wilfred and Connor are on now if you have any questions for them.
Okay. Who do we start with?
Good choice. Either one's fine.
All right, Connor, tell us about yourself and why you like our fire department and want to be part of it.
I want to be part of this fire to help out my community and just have a part in helping out everybody.
And how about your experience and where are you in your life and career, et cetera?
I don't really know. I don't really know.
You come from a long family tradition in the South Thomaston Fire Department. I can tell you that, Connor.
Yeah. My dad, my grandfather, and my brother were on the department, and I've been around these guys ever since I can remember, and always having something to do with the fire department.
Okay. Brian, where does Connor fit in terms of the positions?
Connor will be a junior firefighter because he is 16. So he will be on theoretically probation until he turns 18. Just a little bit also history with Connor. He's pretty much grown up with this department since I've been chief. He's been around the whole thing, inside around, helping out. He actually went out with the deputy chief, Lieutenant Knowlton, and a few others on burn detail to do his community hours for the year. And by my understanding from the deputy chief that he did an excellent job, jumped in, helped out. I've seen a lot of growth with Connor. He's in the same grade as my Connor. I think he wants to come in and do a great job and do what he can to learn. And he actually mentioned last night in our interview that he's thinking about taking the Fire 1-2 program through Midcoast Region 8.
Okay, great.
We need young blood. We need young kids to start joining and younger versions of the ones that are here, because someday we're all going to leave and we need new people to start learning what's going on and start taking over.
Oh, couldn't agree more.
Oh, me either.
Wilfred,
Hi, yes.
you're up.
All right.
about
So born and raised in the area. I've been living outside of the state for the last 15 years, and I've just made my return home a couple months ago. When I lived here, I was a firefighter and EMT in the past, so I'm happy to be involved and get back into the field. So thanks for having me.
I don't know if you saw it or not, but the ambulance director brightened up when you said EMT.
Yeah, I was in the past. Something I'm definitely looking forward to getting back into at some point, though. So
I teach that too.
yeah, well, I'm interested.
Where'd you come from? Where'd you move back from?
I lived in New York for the last 14, 15 years, but born and raised in Rockland, Friendship, and all over the area. So, yeah.
Okay. And where will you fit in the structure?
He will be a probationary firefighter for 6 months minimum and go from there. These two and the other two are coming in kind of at a good time considering what's going on with this COVID stuff. We've restructured or working on restructuring the rest of the training for this year, but they can get the grasp of how the fire department runs and how things operate between the truck checks and equipment checks. And then once we start into the new year, they'll be walking right into doing all the Bureau of Labor requirements and stuff like that. So any help we can get right now, we're going to take it, because it's always a new face, new set of hands, new willing to learn is what we're looking for.
Hold on a second.
Yep.
Questions from Jan or Cheryl?
None from me.
No questions. Waterman.
I move that we accept the chief's recommendation to hire Wilfred Hendren and Connor Knowlton.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, Jan?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Walter? Aye. Just for you, Wilfred and Connor, when we have a Zoom meeting, we have to do a roll call vote. So now you know who your supporters were. But if anybody voted against you, you'd see them too. Welcome and good luck. And Hope to see you around.
I'll be talking to you about E EMS.
Let him get through the fire part first.
Okay, now we're off.
Yep, so now we're back on to department heads and it's Fielder's choice about Penny or Brian going first. Both wanted to discuss some items within their department.
Okay, Penny, let's shift gears to you.
I'm sorry, I haven't got the hang of this yet, but I wanted to let you know the library is open at this point by appointment only. We opened June 1st. We've had several come in. They quite like the fact they can schedule whenever they want, not necessarily on a day that we might have been open. So we have that announcement up on the library website. It would be great if Owen could announce it on the town website or link, you know, announce it with a link to the library or something along those lines. I'm handling all the appointments at this time until the volunteers feel comfortable with the procedures in place for quarantining books and all of that. So at this point, I'm a one-man show, but it's working out very well. My next item was revisiting the book sale and asking once again if it would be possible to use one or two classrooms at Guilford Butler School to have a book sale through the summer by appointment. And that would also allow me to quarantine handled books and, you know, circulate the air, all the stuff that I have to do here in the library. And this is the point of the year where we've had donations come in for a year. So we are literally bursting at the seams up here. There's absolutely no more room to store books here so even if I can't have the book sale there, I'd like to use it for storage, the upper level.
So questions from Jan or Cheryl about it? I just want to be clear as to what the process will be, Penny. I think you mentioned like the inhibitors outside would be that you can't control and guarantee the safety and precautions, et cetera. Whereas inside you can control who's there and when they're there. Is that, I mean, I look at your request is to enhance health and safety in the light of the plague, if you will. Is that, do I have that right?
Yes, the outdoor sale requires quite a bit of work to get them out, and then they have to come back in. They can't stay out. So it has to be a finite, limited time, and that doesn't give, you know, if we just let them at them, that's certainly not a health conscious way to go about selling books. You know, if you're opposed to an ongoing book sale by appointment inside, then perhaps an outdoor sale in the fall could happen. I would prefer to do it in the Guilford Butler parking, you know, in the front drive area, which would give us more parking and easier access than lugging them up and down the basement steps here.
Okay. Janet, Cheryl?
Yeah, I don't have any objection, Walter, Penny, to taking a couple of rooms and having, you know, books laid out to where you could have an ongoing sale. I don't see a problem with that.
I agree with Jan. That should work fine. And it will be not tying up the corner of the right in front of the store and the library also.
Yep. Okay, is that a required vote thing? I think it's just. I mean,
Well, thank you. I hope we can move lots of them. And we'll do it like we're doing library, where they'll call and find a good time that we can let them in. And my last item was exercise class. I have a query out there to find out if the limit for outdoor exercise classes has gone up to 25, but last I knew it was 10 plus an instructor could meet outdoors. And I was wondering if that limit does go up to 25, if perhaps we could use the town office parking lot on Friday mornings for our chair exercise class.
why not?
Yeah, I agree. I don't see any problem with that either. Town office is closed on Fridays.
I would like to use some folding chairs from town office, if that would be possible.
We have chairs. Do you have a key to the building, or you can work with me and we can make sure that you have access to those? And the only other thought that I had was, I don't want to speak for Chief Calderwood, but he does have some old road cones that I think aren't used for what they're doing. Just might be not a horrible idea once you get your attendance that you kind of block off the other entrances. People do use this as a turnaround, so just some way of warning them so they don't, accidentally come and enter your exercise party.
Yeah, I agree.
That would be great. We do have sawhorses that I use here, but cones are much lighter and more visible probably. So that would be terrific. And I was wondering if there is a power source outside of town office.
Outdoor plug.
Yes.
I think there is one in that cellarway, I believe. But I'm not sure about the outside wall.
I don't think there's one outside.
Yeah, I don't think there is one either, but if you get access to the building on a temporary basis, you can run power from inside to outside, but I haven't seen any outdoor electrical outlets.
Where do we plug the Christmas?
The only Christmas tree that's been here since I've been here was a small fake one inside. I would let someone with more historical knowledge of the town answer that question.
Yeah, I'm not sure how she plugged it in.
Put my hand up here. You could check that on. It'd be right outside, opposite where the flag's hanging, right on that corner if there is one. If somebody's in the office could look.
Yeah, and just prior to Penny doing it, if you want to stop in, Penny, we can develop a plan for that as far as power, ways of warning the public that you're doing an event and making sure you have access to those chairs. So just stop in anytime.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
and that's all.
Go ahead.
That's all I have today.
Well, thank you, Penny.
Just a question for me. You brought up a good point, Penny, with your library website. Are we linked to that website from the town website already, Owen, If not,
Yes, it is.
Okay, good.
Yes, they had an existing website, and so under town library and the tab website, it does have a link to go directly to their library website.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Brian?
Hi. One thing, hopefully Penny hasn't logged off yet. Just one thing in regards to her exercise classes. In the event we have a fire call, people coming in, but I will, once those are up and running, if someone can just let me know if that's when they're going to start, and I will send out a reminder to the guys to just FYI on Fridays. There could be people riding bicycles in the parking lot or exercising. So,
I will let you know, Brian, when we get there.
all right, thank you.
And
Thank you.
just because it kind of crossed my mind, I know that folks do have to walk a little bit to it, but you're more than welcome also to maybe use some of the tennis or basketball courts if there's no conflicts there, and that keeps you out of the parking lot. Just something to think about.
Well, we do need to plug in the sound system for
I
our
totally
80s
understand that.
music.
I can't run if I don't have music. It doesn't make any sense. So I got.
Are boom boxes a relic now? I guess so, huh? I haven't seen one in a long time. Sorry, Brian, keep it going.
That's all right, no problem. One thing I have on my list, it's a short list, trust me. I have a request for a burn building training to at 141 Spruce Head Road, which is next to the fire station. Arthur Grayson is looking at refinancing the property. And one request was that the building in the front of the property needs to be torn down. And if I could click buttons right. He asked if we would want to use the building for training purposes, to burn it down for training, as I stated. From my discussion with him and the deputy chief, there's no real asbestos or things like that. We got to do a final walkthrough on it, which isn't hard to do, but I wasn't going to move forward without the blessing of the board, because Arthur has asked me that if we get the blessing from the board to move forward on this, which would be great training for us, that they need his bank needs a letter from myself or the town indicating that we are, if he ends up purchasing the property, that we would burn down the building shortly after that all took place. Concerns I've had when I talked with him, that he's answered for me with regards to the asbestos, stuff like that. The power lines are actually on the same side as the house, but because of the location of this building, which is beside the fire station, I'm pretty sure we would not have to shut down Route 73 at all if we were allowed to move forward. We could position apparatus in the field or on the road, run the hose for water supply from here to the station through the field and all that stuff. No conjunction or not frustration, but not to upset or interfere anyone's daily routine on a Saturday if we were to do it, or a Sunday. But I'm looking for permission from the board if we can move forward on this training proposal.
Who lives on the far side next door?
Arthur Grayson actually lives in the trailer behind it, but it's all classified the property 141. It'd be the first house at the beginning of the driveway.
Yeah, but as you're heading towards Spruce Head, isn't there?
The next
What's
house.
the property line? What I'm worried about is all that vegetation between the two houses.
Yeah, I understand. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. I know who you're talking about. If we were to move forward, I would have discussions with them and along with the people across the side, across the street as well, making notification, putting it out on Village Soup, the town website, wherever we can, just to notify people, go door to door like we've done in the past, that type of stuff. So there's two options that, depending on how we could work things out with other departments in the county, if approved, either we do a full-blown live fire training like we've done in the past, or if anything, we shrink it down to just what we call a defensive fire and learn defensive tactics versus interior tactics type things. With the whole COVID thing, I'm not sure how many other departments would be willing to get together to do a mutual training, but who knows?
I put my hand up here verbally. That's Don Prothero that lives next door.
Right, that's what I thought.
Brian, what does that do to your budget? Anything? Is that going to affect you financially?
No, since we haven't done any training since March, our training budget is still sitting pretty good. We're, like I said earlier, we're not doing any training till July. Just to kind of get back into things. It really wouldn't financially hurt us. It'd be a 1 day potentially. Pretty much as soon as if he gets approved for it, then they want it down kind of immediately. So it'd be within a week or two of him being approved. So my understanding from him, it's going up for auction and he's putting in for it to auction on it since his actual house is on that actual property. So.
And not to jump in, but as far as departments go, especially some of our more expensive departments, the fire department is sitting at a much lower rate than where they would be under other years.
Okay. Brian, would you use the house for other training before you burned it, like internal training?
If the bank will allow us to, yes, I would like to do other trainings prior to actually doing the live fire. Like you said, interior stuff, exterior stuff. Get a couple days more into it, like we've done in the past with other buildings.
Yeah. Okay.
Make a motion to approve the burning of that structure at 147 Spruce Head Road, South Thomaston, upon Arthur Gerson's ownership and after. It also, Arthur has done a lot for the fire department over the years, and it's kind of a win-win situation.
Agree, I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Just
Do reach out to Don though, Brian, and make sure that he knows what you're gonna do, and you know, if he has any qualms to let us know.
Yes, and we would also, in that situation, because his house is right there, we would actually set up hose lines and a water supply to protect that area and always keep an eye on it. And just for your motion, the actual address is 141.
Yeah, tell Don that you burned down my old house right next to Sandy's new one, and there was never any problem.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, all in favor? Jan?
Aye.
Cheryl?
Aye.
Walter, aye. Let us know when you're gonna implement the plan, Brian.
Yes, sir. I've got to do the paperwork and all that too as well.
Okay.
Is the board okay with me sending a letter on department head to Arthur to give to his bank, or do you want one of you three want to do that?
You can do that. If
Yeah.
you want one from me as well, I'm happy to do that.
All right, thank you. I do have one more thing when you're ready.
Sure.
Another thing that has come up with the COVID-19 is the use of paperwork. We do truck checks, as you all know, every month, and that's anywhere from 30 to 40 pieces of paper that we use per truck within all the trucks every month. And one of the things that's come up with the COVID stuff, and Amy probably can back me up on this or help me out a little bit, is the contraction or way of potentially getting the COVID stuff is through paperwork. So we are trying to eliminate paperwork, the amount of paperwork we have and anything to do with paper. So I'm wondering if the board would be all right with me getting iPads, 3 of them, to be used to take care of truck tracks. It would also be used for IM responding on the apparatus mapping. So when with a lot of new people we have, some don't know where they're going, might help when we're going mutual aid. Just wondering what you guys thought is. It's approximately between $1,200 to $1,300 or $1,400, one-time payment done in the month. Then it would add to the monthly invoice to Verizon for the internet usage to it, which we already have. It'd be the same type of iPad that the ambulance has, in the same setup as the ambulance, in the same setup that we have on Engine 53.
Would this be, especially because of the COVID, is it part of our deductions or reimbursements?
I have no idea how that would work. I would throw that to Owen, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, everything that COVID related can be submitted to FEMA. Everything gets itemized. There's no real harm in submitting something to see if they accept it. So we can definitely try that. I don't know if they would accept that or not. Amy sounds like she wants to chime in.
Yeah, they accepted mine. I had to do 3 for EMS down here in St. George, and they accepted all 3 mine to be paid. 90% it was, I think. Owen, wasn't that 90% the last thing they sent us for that?
Correct.
So it was on our list and it got okayed on our end.
So Amy, you had to pay for them first and then get reimbursed.
Yes.
My next question is, do we have that money in the fire department budget anywhere?
Yes, I haven't purchased, I've pretty much, like Owen can attest to, I've stopped on any purchasing of items that were actually in the budget. I haven't bought 2 big things. And there is probably room inside there to make that work. I will make it work.
That was the right answer, Brian.
You're welcome. I figured it would work.
Yeah,
I have a
Brian and I
question.
can definitely work on this and find a place within the budget where it's appropriate.
So tell me about the role of paperwork in contracting or spreading the disease.
I'm not sure, Amy, I'm not sure if you can help
Amy's here,
on that one.
so,
Is that for me?
yeah,
Yeah.
why is this a precaution?
They made us to go to all taking pictures, even with our run sheets and stuff, because they say that even like we're not able to sign anymore. Medicare has waived any signatures and that kind of stuff because of the conductability of paperwork, because they don't know like how long it'll stay on paperwork, that kind of stuff. So we take pictures. That's why we have an iPad in the ambulance now. A lot of times we'll take the picture, or some of them will put it in a Ziploc bag and they'll take a copy of it. So we do no contract of that paper right now until they've okayed it. So
You guys both are using iPads day in and day out for other purposes, right? How
Yeah.
are you protecting the keyboard somehow?
it's a wipe down screen. There's no keyboard to it. It's just a regular iPad screen. It's like a phone. So it's just like this. And so we just wipe them down with our cloths.
Of course.
So
I'm just looking at mine.
yeah. So we didn't buy the attached keyboards to go with them. We just have the regular iPads that we'll wipe
Okay.
off. Yep.
Good. That solves that problem.
Yeah.
Jan,
Yeah, I'm okay with it. If it's within his budget and we can make it work. I think we should put in to be reimbursed, see if we can get some money for it. But
agree. Is there a motion?
if you need one, I'll move to purchase 3 iPads for the fire department.
Is there a
Second,
second? Any further discussion? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Cheryl?
aye.
Jan?
Aye.
Aye.
And I just throw in, Walt, some people lick their fingers when they turn pages.
You're right. That's what I was thinking.
Lame duck, lame duck. Quack, quack.
Guilty.
One thing I found though is that wearing gloves when you're going to the stores, you can't use your iPhone.
That's right.
Okay, Brian, anything else?
That is it from the fire department.
All right, yeah, quit while you're ahead.
Thank you.
Ryan, while we still got you on, go into your monthly report. I don't know, Walter, whether you wanted to talk about that School Street issue. I see Brian has it on his report from.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. Go ahead, Jan.
Yeah, I did. Ryan, you went and looked at School Street where the residents are looking at rerouting the right of way, if I understand it right.
Yes, I did.
So from an EMS and fire perspective, is the new route that they have built, I guess, satisfactory to get equipment and things down?
So the fire department, yes, and I see Amy shaking her head, yes, so EMS as well. We're good to go with it.
Okay. I don't really want to get into any more than that, but I wanted to know that, new or old would be satisfactory from a safety standpoint. You've answered that question, so
Right.
that's what we had. Well,
that ends for the time being any involvement by the town in that situation. Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
You all set with me, Walter?
Yeah,
All right, thank you all. Night.
okay. Owen, how's the opening? And everything else?
Opening has gone good. People have been really understanding when we ask them, hey, we're with a customer. Can you please wait outside? Folks have been very respectful about that. No one's really had issues staying limited to just the front entrance, not being able to use the bathroom, etc. So as far as town operations have gone here in the town office, it's gone pretty smoothly. Pembe Glass did a great job installing the tempered glass that we have here. That's been working well. Still processing folks in and out. Have seen, like I mentioned earlier, a little bit of an uptick in people coming in to do vehicle registrations. So that's been nice. We're still kind of holding off a little bit on, allowing folks to come back into the back office. They can set up appointments with the code enforcement officer, the LPI, or the assessor to go over items. Code enforcement's been doing site visits and or looking over items out in the parking lot. So that's all here in the town office. It's been going well. Penny gave you an overview of what she's doing with the library. I feel like Brian and Amy have done kind of an overview of where their departments are at. Not really much change there. The stump dump, about the only thing that we've done slightly differently there is for a period of time, we were kind of relaxing the information of which we gathered, which minimized the stump dump attendance exposure to folks. I did talk with Jerry today. Because of some of the activity in the surrounding communities, we're going to transition back to taking full accountability of all folks that come in. So instead of name, address, permit number, license plate number, we were just doing permit and license plate number because those are viewable by the attendant. He could write all that information down, didn't necessarily have to interact with the patrons. St. George stopped their stump dump, so we kind of saw an uptick there. And so we're now kind of at a place to where we want to be a little more thorough vetting those coming in and out. So probably coming up in the next week or so, the attendant will go back to name, address, permit number, license plate number. So that's really the only change.
If I can add, just remember, we do have the security camera that we can see vehicles going in and out of the stump dump. If there's any questions about anything, that can be recalled.
Yep, and the attendant, is pretty good about writing those things down. When we catch wind that things have changed in the surrounding communities, Jerry's been great about checking with Dana, make sure that he knows the latest. It's really nice that we have two longtime locals. Not that we're trying to be harsh on folks, but they know who's a St. George resident, who's an Owl's Head resident, who's South Thomaston, etc. So we've had a couple incidents, but nothing too bad. There's good communication between the stump dump and the town office. But it's just, he's going to be taking back down the historical amount of information that he has probably within the next week.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
The next item on the Conservation Commission stuff, like I mentioned in my report, my apologies for not catching earlier that this was an item that needed a warrant for us to be more thoughtful about in putting towards the town. You You all can, if you want to, try to work forward on that, but we would have to have a public hearing that pushes back our potential timeline for town meeting. So my recommendation would be to hold off on the Conservation Commission portion itself. But like I also mentioned in the report, any items that those folks who have been working on this want to move forward on, they can always bring it to me or to board members. We can put it on the agenda and give them that authorization. Or you can, if you want to, put together a committee, not referencing state statute, not bound by an ordinance, as an interim thing. So you have some options there. My apologies to those folks that have worked hard on this. We're not going to forget about them. It just might be on the Conservation Commission itself, something that we defer until a later date.
Yeah, well, I too assigned to the term municipality municipal officers. So I also overstated our ability to create that commission without an ordinance. So I think that their work can go on, should go on. I think what I'd like to have is a couple of, I would propose that we have a couple of the members of that group. And we don't have to do that. My view would be that we craft an ordinance for the town meeting in 2021. And so sometime in the next couple of meetings, we figure out who should craft that ordinance. I know that we have some samples that have been submitted. I don't know who saw them, but I haven't really read through them, but I have them. I think they were sent to you as well, Owen.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
so,
yep, and they're really great about putting the time into wordsmithing. If they have concerns that the board's raised, they have indicated that they're open to changing those things. And about the only thing that I would add is that there was that grouping of folks that showed an interest in the beginning, and then when we communicated with the town that we were thinking about putting this together, some other folks came forward. So on ongoing communications with the group, probably just lump everyone that has displayed an interest in. Not all of them might be appointed to the Conservation Commission upon completion of it, but I think they all had showed an interest and could provide some good input.
right. Also, we did get an advisory from MMA Legal Services as to what I would call the minimum or the base requirements of an ordinance should have in it. So that's kind of the starting point.
Yep, and just a little bit to add, I mean, since the last meeting of this, it's kind of been talked out a little bit. We can pick anything that we want to put in that ordinance. This group could be empowered to do significant things, or it could be empowered to be like a lot of our committees are, which are advisory in nature. It would be my recommendation that we craft an ordinance to have them in the beginning anyway, be advisory in nature, see how it goes, look at the good work that they're doing. And then as that group grows or the town grows, we can always put forward, some additional powers to them, some additional budgetary items over time.
Okay. All right. So this doesn't require a vote.
Did I hear that we had some sample ordinances, Owen?
So there's been the original information that group put out, some of their kind of mission statement, and then yes, Thomaston, there was the Thomaston ordinance, and so I'll blast out to you all as much information as we have on that for your review.
Yeah, I mean, I can take a stab at redoing the ordinance if you give me one to work with, adapting it to our needs and putting the information both that John Spear, his concerns in his memo and the information that the committee had given us already. So if you put that in a package for me, Owen, I can take that on.
Yep, I'll try to consolidate everything and then put it out and try to include all kind of interested parties. It might get a little complicated, too many cooks in the kitchen, but
all I'm looking for is to put a straw man together, as an ordinance that we can then pass around and let people chew on. But give it something to, have a start with.
Right, here's the working document. Everybody, now interested parties take a shot at it, add to it, delete, yeah.
Alone, and then give it back to everybody to chew on.
Thank you, Janet.
Yeah, no problem.
Is it the sense of the board not to try to put this on the warrant for the June 30th town meeting? Because I don't think we have enough time to do the job right.
Right.
Okay.
And-
That's affirmative.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay. Next item, set the town meeting date, time, and location.
Yeah, and I don't know, I mean, I guess maybe I should have flopped those two items. Did you want to look at the warrant first and feel comfortable with the warrant and then roll into potentially setting a date, or vice versa as it is on the?
You decide what you would, what would suit you the most.
I'd like to go over the warrant, any sort of potential changes, make sure that we're comfortable with that. And then I think what we can do is approve the warrant articles as amended if you want to, and then put those into a town meeting time, date, location.
Very good. So now we're calling up the last one we got today, right?
Correct. There were some changes between the draft that was included in your packet and what I sent out today, and I'm happy to highlight those changes.
Do we want to read through the entire thing?
Don't think it's necessary.
I don't either, but
All right, so maybe what I'll do is I'll gloss over all of the articles, won't have to go in detail. We can gloss over some of the budgetary ones, but I will highlight any changes that have been done in individual articles.
okay.
So 1, the moderator standard. 2, that language around the select board member and their term of office wasn't really matching with the school board one. So they now have identical language, both Article 2 and 3, for a term until town meeting of 2023. So it is a 3-year term, but they're identical. And then if we've learned anything, putting a month specific for when town meeting is going to be might not always be accurate. So we've just left it as blanket until town meeting of 2023, both for Article 2 and 3. Article 4 gets you all paid. Article 5 is the shellfish ordinance. Public hearings have already been done on that. Article 6 is the land use changes to our ordinance. Because it's greater than 10 pages, it doesn't have to be included in its entirety here. We do have copies at the town office. If anyone wants those for review, we'll have those at town meeting itself. Remember the public hearing on that and the participable solid waste, the junkyard ordinance will be June 18th, though we're not putting the junkyard ordinance out. Article 7, you wanted to keep the creation of the transfer station fund funded by the monies that we got from MRC PERC.
Let me, further on in the agenda, you have a discussion item about the transfer station.
Correct.
Let's do that now.
Okay.
So the transfer station board is actually meeting right as we speak with CES, which is the engineering firm, and Atlantic something or other. And the first phase of the project, we accepted a bid for the replacement of the 4 compactors. And that's what that discussion is tonight. And so the 3 select boards will receive a request from the treasurer of the transfer station board, who happens to be me, requesting those funds sooner rather than later, that the PERC and MRC funds be transferred to the transfer station. So
in total, or just what you need for the new boxes? They asking for the whole amount?
Yeah. But I think I'm not sure Thomaston is going to like that idea. So that just means that I have to take the amount of the 4 compactors and multiply it by the percentage that each town has to contribute. So it's hardly any complex math, but so that could go either way, Jan. Because we don't have the bids for the balance of the project, it makes sense for us to collect, us being South Thomaston, to collect the interest on the fund that will be in that reserve account until it's absolutely necessary. So I will put my South Thomaston Select Board hat on when that discussion comes up.
There'd be resistance from the other towns, because I remember when we talked about this, initially the transfer board wanted to hold on to that money from each of the towns, and
right.
So you might get some pushback, but I trust the treasurer, so I'll stand by for further advice.
Well, thank you. I'll try to make sure I warrant that trust. And once that reserve account, assume that reserve account is committed for that particular purpose, then the board can vote to dispose of those funds for that purpose. Is that correct? Or do we need another town meeting for that?
Well, we'll catch you another time then.
I apologize. My brother hit me up on FaceTime to see my niece, so I just hit enter on that. Could you please repeat the question while I told him I was in a meeting?
So so Article 7 creates the reserve account for a specific purpose. Can we then authorize the expenditure with a vote of the select board, or do we need a vote of the town?
No, you have been given your annual powers to draw down those reserve accounts for the appropriate purposes. It seems to have been the customary practice for big drawdowns that the select board asks the town's permission to do so. I think considering the close proximity of creating the reserve and then funding said reserve, that if the town approves that, you kind of have the go ahead to use those funds for that purpose. If we were talking about 5 years in the future and it's accrued interest and we're confused about things, that's kind of a different scenario, but you don't have to ask the town to then utilize those funds
for what they had put aside for.
Right.
Right. If you wanted to switch it to be a road project, that's an inappropriate purpose. You have to ask the town to do that. But if you create it for this specific purpose, you have the power to then draw that down just by a vote at a regularly noticed meeting.
Penny's still on, isn't she? Do you agree with that interpretation, Penny?
I do.
Okay.
I think that's justifiable.
Thank you. I've become sensitized to making sure that we follow the letter of the law and we don't interpret it, and that I don't interpret it as I want it to be anymore. Okay, sorry, Owen, go ahead.
We could actually, well, before we leave that, we actually could add a little bit, a few more words on that Article 7 if you wanted. Where it says creation of a reserve account entitled, we could say for the specific, for specific transfer station improvements or something like that, or upcoming transfer station improvements. And after the name of it, transfer station reserve. I mean, a little more words in there might give us, make it more clear what we're going to use it for.
You could simplify it for just simply for transfer station improvements, following that quotation. Intended for transfer station improvements.
Mm-hmm.
So intended for transfer station improvements and initially funded through a transfer of, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Okay, you want to take a shot at that, Owen, and send it to us? Or when we vote on it, let's vote on it provisionally that, that we're gonna make that addition, or you can make it right now. Let's make it right now.
Okay, so Article number 7 will now read, to see if the town will approve the creation of a reserve account entitled, quote, Owl's Head, South Thomaston, Thomaston, parentheses, OHSTT, end parentheses, Transfer Station Renovation Reserve, intended for transfer station improvements and initially funded through a transfer of $153,479, which the town received due to its withdrawal from the Municipal Review Committee. Select Board Budget Committee recommends approval.
Okay.
Yep.
And then just because this is via Zoom, I can't go run into the office, print off a new one for you all to sign. If and when you approve this warrant, we'll have to collect your signatures at a later date. All right, moving on.
Yep.
Article 8, general government funding. Article 9, public safety funding. Article 10, public works funding. Article 11, health and sanitation funding. Article 12, general assistance. Article 13, culture and recreation. Article 14, debt service. Article 15 is funding of the reserve accounts. Article 16 is the cemetery, Georges River Shellfish, and veterans. I said 16, right? So those are all your funding articles for the various town departments. And then we go to Article 17. In the first version that you got in your packets, it still had the, not amortization schedule, but the principal amount and then the interest based on 2.75% at a 5-year payback. Because of the investment grade audit showing that it might be a little over 5 years for the payback time period, we did have that option of 2.85% over a 6-year payback period. I included in the supplemental stuff that I sent out today. I was trying to do the amortization schedule, and it seemed like a smart idea to just go to the pros, especially the folks that were going to give us the funding. So I did include Machias's payback at that 2.85% over 6 years. And so in the Article 17 that you got today does read over 2.85% as a 6-year payback. And then as a reminder, the beginning portion of Article 17 talks about the not to exceed amount, the 38,000. And then it does say under terms of which the select board deems advisable. And then the number 2 and number 3 in the treasurer's report does talk about estimations that there could be some slight fluctuations between now and when we actually get that, if the town approves it. So we did our best at trying to put an accurate number in there, but the article itself is a not to exceed loan amount, and then also empowering you all to have that interest rate and payback period. But this is basically what we would be going with. Any questions about that? And which one? It's my recommendation that we go with the 6-year payback time period. It's just, it gives us a little bit of flexibility on any changes that we might see with CMP and PUC rates, because the intent has always kind of been, from my understanding, that we paid this loan back with the cost savings from the leases amount that we pay to CMP. So this actually kind of pulls it better in line with actually seeing some cost savings annually, but making all those repayment payments based on cost savings. Any questions?
Got it.
All right.
I do have one, although it's only tangentially related to this. The smart controls.
Included in that amount, yes.
Okay. If you, once Thomaston gets set up, you ought to call them and find out how they're managing that. They had in their meeting last night, they gave the job to the police department, which is kind of interesting. But we don't have one of those.
Luckily, I'll call Tim Carroll and see if we can get a sheriff on it.
Keep it going.
Article 18 is the LD1 tax levy limit. Hopefully Article 18's not necessary. It would only be necessary if people amend the articles up significantly. Article 19, your all's power to utilize surplus funds to reduce the amount of funds raised at town meeting. 20, allowing the select board to appoint all the town officials required, required by law. 21, to sell or dispose of any real property. 22, to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board on behalf of the town to accept gifts and certain funds that may be left to the town. I put some asterisks there because that was like the only article that we had that had a date specific on it. It said through the year of 2020. And if we've learned anything, it's that, 2020 ends and then there's a time period before we get reauthorization. So I've struck any date specific aspect off of that one. It was an odd standout that you could, what happens in February if someone leaves something to the town? You don't have that authority. So there was that change to Article 22. Any questions about that?
No.
Is that what the 3 stars next to it indicate?
Correct, and I'll clean it up for the version that you all sign. I underlined some of the changes and then put some indicators where there were other changes. Yep. 23, to accept and dispose of equipment. 24, again, transferring of funds for unexpended balances and surplus as it deems necessary. It's another select board power. Article 25 is the one that we added last year that allows us to expend funds between January 1 and town meeting not to exceed 1/4 of last year's budget. Article 26, make application for and execute documents on behalf of the town. Article 27 was the delinquent tax rate article. That one is underlined. Like Walter mentioned earlier, the Treasurer's Department of the state, they set the max amount that we can have. They sent out an email apologizing. Apparently they can do this, so they have changed it and they've lowered it from 9% down to 8%. So you can only max out at 8%. And I made an assumption that where you wanted to max out at 9%, you'd want to keep it at 8%. Any questions about that? Article 20, say that again?
7% before, right?
It was 7% last year, correct. Yeah,
So
Article 28, I did add some language in there. Chelsea noticed that we don't mention at all in that discount article that these are on property taxes that have not yet been committed. And so just to be more clear about where this discount is, we added, see if the town will vote to authorize the tax collector to give a 1.5% discount on any portion of property taxes not yet committed, paid on or before June 1st of the current year. So it's just more of a clarification than anything.
So that we're increasing it to 1.5 because that's our cost of money. So we're giving the early payers the break that we get.
Yes, it was 1% last year.
Yeah, okay.
And then there is a new Article 29. Again, a good Chelsea catch. If we give an abatement, we need to give interest on basically we collected money from them that was inappropriate because of an error. That's what an abatement is. That's why we have the overlay, and we pay those abatements out of the overlay. And state statute says that your max delinquent interest rate, unless stated otherwise and approved at town meeting, is the repayment. And so what Article 29 does is says, okay, we made a mistake, we'll pay you back, and we'll pay the interest. It's all prorated, so it's not like we pay, it's based on when we do that abatement. But it says to see if the town will vote to set the interest rate to be paid by the town on abated taxes at a rate of 4%. So that saves us 4% on any abatements, again, 8 being the delinquent interest rate. And to authorize such interest paid or abatements granted to be appropriated from the overlay funds, or if necessary, from unassigned fund balances. Any questions about that?
Well, overlay funds don't really exist.
Well, we do, I mean, we budget for them.
You're right. Yeah. Okay. It's just.
And the only reason, yeah, the only reason for putting the surplus in there, I mean, there could be some crazy
that's a good catch.
wacky.
Would you make a note for something? So June 30th is halfway through the year. So after we get through town meeting, would you give us a summary of abatements year to date? Because I think we're doing the same as we did last year, which was we're running well under the overlay. So that's a good thing. But that's just my impression, and I want to validate it.
Yep. Going back to Article 27, you'll see at the end of there, and this is language that's been included historically. Requests for abatements are to be made within 185 days of commitment. And so I think we've already gone past that. Yep. We did our 2 abatements this year. You all approved those earlier. So, but I can pull that if you want to. It was the.
Yeah, don't rush off and do that. I just, like I said, halfway through the year, let's, tick and tie that. When we set the overlay in August, we'll be looking at funding it for next year. So it would be nice. I think we're going to have 2 years of lower rates than we had for the previous 4 or 5 years. And I'd be interested to know why we think that is.
I feel like I asked that question to the assessor because I kept asking, am I missing something here? So I'm not sure why. They might be able to see a trend, and I'll bring that to you.
Okay. Like I said, don't agonize over this until after we get through the half year.
Yep. And then so I'm just looking at it right now. The bookends of this warrant is the date and the location. The only thing is I guess I wasn't consistent. At one point we talked about 6:30 and at one point at 7. So the tail end of this says 6:30, but the beginning says 7. So I can amend that. I believe we went with 7 was kind of what was discussed last time.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll clean that up to be 7 o'clock.
And we're square with Jeremy Swartz and Mike Mayo.
Yep, we're good with both. And I talked with Jeremy. We have Wi-Fi in that bay, good power in that bay. Depending on the weather, the doors can be completely opened or not. Still need to do a little bit on some of the audio stuff, just making sure that we have microphones that are sensitive enough to pick things up without folks touching them. We got our 5-gallon pail of hand sanitizer. We've got masks and gloves a go-go. There are some, I was waiting until this was finalized. Once it is, I'll meet with Jeremy again and we'll go over some of the additional logistics, like putting signage up from the parking lot to the hangar bay itself so that it's easy to navigate. It's not a huge airport, but making sure that there's safe passage for folks from the parking area to the bay itself. Checking out that layout, making sure we mark out folks sitting at 6-foot increments, where everyone's going to be positioned at, and then the audio visual and testing the live stream capabilities of it.
Do we need to have a meeting with Mike?
No, I mean, you can if you want to. Based on our conversation last time, he hasn't had any concerns about any of the different scenarios of which I've laid out to him. This is probably the most open of the scenarios that he and I have discussed. But I can query him on that. And if you want to do I don't think it's inappropriate to go over the warrant with him a little bit prior so that he's got it fresh in his mind, but he hasn't raised any concerns about him being the moderator through this event.
Okay, I would like somebody to gently remind him that our funding articles are uncapped. And I don't want to have to do that and embarrass him at the meeting.
We'll make sure to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and I had one question on, I didn't hear the Georges River Shellfish Management article. It's there, I assume.
Article 5, yes.
Okay, yep, good. And, well, we can talk about it later or now, but with this warrant approved and the date set, I don't want to make an assumption that we can send something out to the population, the residents, this new, somewhat new amended annual report.
Yeah, if you all want us to, and if you direct this office to, that's something that we can do. What I would likely end up doing is just compressing it down slightly to try to reduce the amount of pages that we send out. Every additional page is a little bit more on postage. You know, unfortunate that we sent out the town reports with that warrant in it, and then we've made changes. The bulk of it is very similar to what's in the town reports, but that is something that we can do. It just, the font's going to be kind of small to try to make sure that we get it all on there and save a little bit on postage.
Yeah, I'm not sure you want to do a mailing of the warrant to everybody. I just don't see people. Yeah, I think they're just going to throw them away. You know, those that come to the town meeting are obviously going to see it, have copies of it there.
Why don't we have it there?
Yeah,
I don't know, Cheryl. Cheryl, you're not, were you suggesting that we send a new annual report?
No, only that, that there's been notifying the voting residents that there's a change in venue, where it is and when what's been modified, and perhaps directions or just a little bit of information, because this is a big shift for everyone to be going over there, and a somewhat of a change in the articles. So it's just an idea, not a request.
No, I think you're right, Cheryl. We do have to put something out that tells people where it's going to be, when, time, place, because that is new for everybody, just like, you know, Ash Point School was new.
Yeah, and not everybody looks at the website, and they're not going in the store and blah, blah, blah. So the best communication right now, we're ending up with direct mail.
Yep. What we can do, if you want, is we can do a postcard which just highlights the very specific information about time, date, location, where the warrants are posted. And then the last two things, one, Penny has her hand, so I don't know when I'm done if she wants to say something, but the only thing I just want to raise about that is it does go slightly counter to the desire to keep this town meeting somewhat limited. We don't want to limit anyone or reject anyone, but if we send out a communication to everyone in town, it might increase the amount of folks that we have at town meeting, which is not a bad thing at all, just under our current situation, just something to consider.
Yeah, go ahead. Penny?
Well, I was also going to suggest maybe a postcard saying that copies of the new warrant would be available to pick up at town office or even here at the library or various locations. Could save a lot of money. It's, you know, 50 whatever cents for a first class mailing, up to 5 pages, I think. And then, but the postcard can be done bulk mailing for less than 300. I was wondering if, now that the governor has said that towns that haven't previously voted to do this can go to the referendum, if that had been considered. And if not, what will you do when that 51st person shows up at town meeting?
Well, I'll offer my opinion that it's spacing and social distances, as it's called, and a cap on the number of people isn't relative to this. It is relative to the amount of area that the meeting is being held in my opinion. So that hangar can handle 51, 60 people, whatever. Just a blanket 50 people is not scientific.
It is the governor's directive, though.
Right, and town council advised us that, well, first of all, we know we can't reject anyone. We run the risk of being sued for disenfranchisement. Just to put all of those possibilities in line, we can't reject anyone who doesn't wear a mask, and we cannot take temperatures of people on the way in and reject them for having a temperature of 100. What town council suggested is that we basically have a section for 50 and that we wall off or partition off seating for 51 through whatever. But she seems to be comfortable of us going ahead under the assumption that our recent history is that we don't have 50. But maybe the postcard will trigger 100. But you know, I think we've stripped out the articles that I think we're going to generate a crowd, and I personally believe that we should have a crowd for those articles, and that we do that at the right time. But so that was the rationale for stripping those out of the warrant. But Kristen didn't say that Jan, Cheryl, and I would be arrested if number 51 shows up and we let him in.
I'm willing to take that risk. I did walk that hangar space that we're referring to, and it actually lends itself to be able to section it off, if you will. So I think we easily can space people and have an area with 50 people easily. And then if there's overflow, there's an additional space that we could set up for, social distancing as well. If push comes to shove, if the weather's right, we can even have people stand outside and be participants. So we'll try as hard as we can to accommodate everybody, but it's a unique situation for us.
Yeah, I'm personally, I'm very nervous about, I've been paranoid about this from the get-go, and just got notification that Phil has approved Barbara and my absentee ballots. So I'd have been all in favor of the referendum idea, Penny.
So
it does allow people to vote absentee, which could increase participation.
Yeah, we did consider it. Owen, you want to speak to some of the roadblocks we ran into at this late date?
Yeah, so this is something that was brought up to the governor's office. Not going to get into, decision making around that. That was a tool and a mechanism that would have been useful somewhere between 2 weeks and a month and a half ago. The timeline that we've been given to then conduct a referendum vote on select board members, school board members, articles, powers, budgetary funding, the whole 9 yards. It's not logistically feasible for us to do that in conjunction with the June 14th election. We have overseas voters. We expose potentially our election clerks to having to hand count a significant amount of ballots. It's a great tool. It just came too late. We don't have enough time to react to that. It's kind of complicated things more than it helped. But yes, it was very much considered. We reviewed it, talked about it with town council. It's just not logistically feasible at this time.
While we're on the subject of the July 15th or 14th referendum, I was told that you would be discussing the location of the polls tonight, and I didn't see that on the agenda.
So that was something of which we've also been trying to react to, not trying to criticize the state too much, though there's a lot to criticize. We get information about what is allowed and what is not allowed at a pretty slow rate. We were trying to figure out if still required to keep the amount of booths that we have. There's a rubric, a ratio that you have to have the amount of booths, voting booths per your population. And then we would have to keep those booths at a certain distance from them. So putting it in the community room under that system of guidelines was not really going to work for us. So we had talked with Brian and Amy briefly about any concerns they had about using the emergency bay, especially considering it's an 8 to 8 instead of just a town meeting thing. That's difficult to try to capitalize and utilize that emergency bay for that period of time. So that definitely wasn't desirable, but if held to those requirements and regulations, that was kind of the only way that we could do it here within the building. We did hear back from communications from the Secretary of State's office that it is highly likely we won't be held to those, and we can reduce the amount of booths that we have, which make it then doable to do in the community room. And so today we kind of went over a tentative plan for that, having folks flow into the town office through one door, spacing for physical distancing, coming in, voting, and then exiting out of a different door, signage around the building. But we believe that we'll be able to do it in the community room and still meet all the guidelines.
I am concerned about the air circulation in the community room. And if the second exit was going to be ADA compliant?
It wouldn't be, no. I mean, if we were to go out the back door, what we can do is in the event we get someone that has additional challenges, we can have them exit through the fire bay, which does allow them ground access without stairs, which is ADA compliant. So, I mean, we're happy to make that accommodation for folks who need it, but primarily we would be routing folks out of the side door that does have steps. And again, none of this, just to be clear, none of us want to be in this situation. We're trying to do our best at keeping some semblance of normalcy while not blatantly violating the law or going against executive orders. So none of this is desirable or how we want to see it done, but it's our best plan on accommodating for what we need to do. Where are we at now?
We have to vote on the warrant.
So to reiterate, the only amendments that I have to what was presented to you all was the additional language on the transfer station reserve account, which I read out, and then fixing the time on the tail end of the warrant to fall in line with the front, which was 7 p.m. And they're both set for June 30th.
7 o'clock. Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Yeah, so moved. I'll move to approve the date of the town meeting to 7 p.m., 30 June, 2020.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Let's take this vote and then I have a comment. All in favor, Cheryl?
Aye.
Jan?
Aye.
Walter? Aye. What alternatives did you look at for the polls, if any? I heard the fire bay. Was it?
Yes. alternatives for the polls would be trying to do the same kind of drive-in style of which we were considering doing for town meeting when we were talking about calling everything for a written ballot, utilizing the tennis or basketball courts under fair weather conditions. That is still a possibility that we could utilize those. And then the fire bay itself was kind of the obvious choice because it's an all weather and you can open things up to have better ventilation. It does make it a little more difficult for controlling. They definitely want to see control of ingress and egress. We can rope things off. I mean, it's all doable. The thing is we have constrained our thinking to this site specifically, what is here in and around the circumference of the town office. And with that, you know, the community room is the obvious place to do it. It wasn't doable under needing to have the certain amount of booths and having them at specific distances. But where we're going to be kind of keeping people at 6-foot increments and only allowing a certain amount of folks in to the polling place at a time, we'll be able to get away, we believe anyway, by having less polling booths themselves and being able to space those further apart. It might make for a little bit more of a wait time for folks as they wait to vote. We can try to work on making sure that we only have a certain amount of people in the town office itself, which allows for folks to wait outside where the ventilation is better, and then kind of putting people into the hopper, so to speak, to be going down the hall, standing in line. It's going to be a slower process, again, not desirable at all. But we have had, what do we have, 70 absentees so far?
That was my next question.
We've had 70 for the state stuff. The school district is in a very similar boat as to ours, is that they were waiting for guidance from the state on being able to do just referendums instead of their budget validation process as well. So unfortunately, we will have to hand count those school ballots. If folks want to participate just in the state election and not the school budget, then a lot of folks have been requesting absentee ballots, which is great. It's a little bit more work for the folks here in this office. However, it keeps them out of the polling places on voting day.
Okay. All right. Might continue discussing this a little bit, but let us know when our absolute drop dead date is to propose or think through changes, Owen.
Yeah, and just to throw it out there, one of the things that has kind of been on my to-do list, sorry I haven't done it yet, and maybe Chelsea, she's over at her desk, might know the answer to. We have a certain radius around the town of which we can have town meeting. It allows us to go outside of the town for town meeting itself. I'm not entirely sure the regulations around voting. I don't know if they're identical or not. I don't know if we can go to the airport or go to Ash Point School to do our polling itself. And, okay. Chelsea's just saying that Julie Flynn, Deputy Secretary of State, should be issuing guidance next week on any changes of the requirements around the elections. That's kind of what we're referencing on the number of booths itself. And she's saying there's a significant amount of badgering that's going on to try to get this information so that we don't have to scramble. It's not what we want to do. Elections are serious business and we want to have these things planned out, but we have to do it in accordance with the guidance that we get. And in the world of COVID, it's slow and sometimes last minute.
Okay. All right. Let us move on. So so we have to authorize Chelsea to collect. Explain it. I'm sorry. I read your email. Your email sunk in better than this.
So just like when I took over for Terry, there were you set the commitment for taxes, and that commitment then goes to the tax collector to collect. They send out the bills, their name's on the bottom of all of it. And when a new tax collector comes in mid-collection, if so you didn't have to do it for 2016 because we've resolved all that. but 19's taxes are still outstanding for some folks. And so when we transition to a new tax collector, we need to recommit those taxes to that individual so that they can send out lien notices and bills and things like that. And so the documents that you were sent were the recommitment documents. We will say that in the process of doing this, Chelsea is very thorough, and we've identified some small discrepancies within some of these remaining 19 taxes. They are things that don't affect the recommitment itself, but just a little forewarning, next month we'll likely be bringing some items to you all that will help us reconcile that. They're not major substantive, but they are things of which the town just should be doing as natural course of business. Oh, and then it can't be just an empowered, my understanding, you cannot vote to just empower one signatory. It does have to be by a majority of the board. So the motion tonight should be to recommit those taxes to Chelsea Summers, your tax collector, and then either with Jan coming in and signing the warrants, or I can cart the documents around. We will need to get all folks' signatures, so you can't just empower one board member to be the signatory.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I have a question.
Sure.
In the past, it was the town administrator was the tax collector. This is a shift in job description.
Remember back in February, when Chelsea came in, she in Hope was both the clerk and the tax collector. You all have historically had the administrator where the treasurer, the tax collector, the clerk, the GA administrator, the FOA, and the administrative assistant roll all at the same time. There's nothing that says that you have to do it that way, where this is something that Chelsea had more experience in than I did, and something she desired to continue doing. You all voted in February to have her be the tax collector and the clerk. One thing that we can and should do is clean up job descriptions to maybe reflect some of that change. However, you don't necessarily want to tie in with your job descriptions exactly what everyone's going to be doing, because that kind of limits you. But you all as the select board appoint these positions. You could appoint kind of anyone that you wanted to that had credentials enough to do so.
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure it wasn't a shift of responsibility.
Well, I mean, it is. I'm no longer the tax collector as of February, the end of February.
Nor is he the town clerk. So for instance, when we have the town meeting, it'll be Chelsea that calls the meeting to order and runs the show.
Yeah, I will say that because of the nature of this workspace and office and workforce that we have in the town, it's never a one-person show. You know, when I was the tax collector, I was working very closely with Phil and Michelle, and then Phil and Brenda. And Chelsea will continue to work with us. We will assist her in the generation of the tax bills. It's her name at the bottom of it. She's responsible for collections. So there is a technical shift in whose name it is and whose responsibility it is. But we in this office are Team South Thomaston. If Phil needs items and he needs assistance, if I do or if Chelsea does, we all definitely continue to support each other. So it's a technicality, but we're functioning very similarly.
So it's housekeeping.
Yeah, I mean, we should have done that when we made her the tax collector. That was an oversight on my part. Typically, when you reappoint when you appoint a new tax collector, you should recommit those taxes immediately. So that's why we're trying to ratify that now. I think I'll take complete ownership for that. You know, a lot of things got funny directly after that. We might have caught it earlier, but we caught it now and wanted to make sure that we set that down.
Well, you brought up realigning the job descriptions at the time, and we said, or at least I said, let's do it later. So, so
So you need,
is there a motion?
yeah, I'll move to recommit the 2019 taxes to the tax collector, Chelsea Summers.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, Cheryl,
aye.
Jan,
Aye.
aye.
Did we approve the warrant?
Yeah.
In kind of draft?
I reviewed the two amendments that we had,
Yep.
and then I'll clean that copy up and cycle it through and get signatures from you all.
Okay, you're gonna send out the smooth copy when it,
I'll send out the smooth copy, and then I'll have to cart around there's multiple copies that need to be signed for multiple places throughout town, but I'll go and grab those signatures within the next day or so.
okay?
All right, so we discussed the transfer station. So now let's do insurance.
All right. Insurance for a town is crazy.
I'll say.
So I had heard that some other larger municipalities were realizing some cost savings by shopping through private organizations instead of going just with MMA. So it seemed like a worthwhile thing to explore. The benchmark was always insurance coverage needed to stay the same or be better, and that there needed to be like a flat annual cost or a cost savings. And then that would necessitate a recommendation that we transition away from MMA to a private organization. So I worked with a local firm. We got two different quotes from two different private insurance providers. One of them side by side with MMA didn't seem to make much sense. The other was more competitive. However, as we continued to explore that, MMA was great about it. They were very understanding of the fact that I felt it was due diligence to try to see what the best thing was for the town. They were great to work with. Same with the private insurance firm. And so there was shipping back and forth of quotes to these organizations. Then they were reviewed, notes were given. So it was an ongoing process. At the end of the day, even though under certain circumstances, the private quote was less, when you throw other bonding amounts for your tax collector, your road commissioner, your treasurer, when you throw all the different perks that you get for MMA, there's dividends from MMA, there's et cetera, et cetera. If we were a larger organization that had a wastewater facility, a police department, subsurface infrastructure, all kinds of stuff that got insured under the private folks that we didn't need, it's just more difficult to handpick exactly what you want with the private folks. With MMA, they're great about saying, you don't have a wastewater facility, we don't need to insure you for that. So the folks that I was dealing with that got the two other quotes said, upon further review, you're too small to have this make sense. Your best bet is to go with MMA. I talked with MMA. They said that they were fine with all of that. So you've been provided. I did provide both the top two ones to you all earlier, and then again MMA's. So, and the last thing that I'll say, not placing any blame on anyone. It was a very healthy exercise for us to go through here in the town office. It had us review everything, make sure that we had our items properly accounted for, quantities, valuations. There are still just a couple of small things that are remaining that I'd like to resolve as far as coverage for the town, but they're not, they can all be figured out over time. MMA is great about working with us to alter things. So, I mean, using the ambulance as an example, throughout the course of 1 year, we had 4 different ambulances insured, if not, and Amy's shaking her head. So MMA really is great. They were great through this whole process. So it's my recommendation that you all approve renewing our insurance, property and casualty, physical buildings with Maine Municipal Association they do it on the fiscal year. So it'll get renewed July 1.
So, and I appreciate the amount of energy and hard work you put into this. And the fact that we ended up in the same place where we started is of no consequence, because what we did was we said, let's not just blindly accept the things the way they are. Let's test and see if the circumstances have changed, and we need to change. So I think that was a valuable exercise. I have some observations. First of all, Guilford Butler is valued at $2.4 million. Where did that come from?
So, and that's something that I was trying to work with on MMA. So there's valuation, and then there's replacement valuation. That's one of the items that we need to iron out over time. Also look at the town landing. That pier says that its replacement value is $75,000. That's something that needs to be worked out over time. So their replacement value is on a higher per square footage new construction build than might be used under different scenarios. So off the top of my head from memory, the total Guilford Butler site for the town, including the land and the building, is valued at $770,000, something like that. The building itself is assessed at 600 and something thousand, but that replacement is under new construction costs. With the private folks, we've estimated at roughly 1.4 to 1.5 million of replacement cost. There was some confusion when the building turned over from RSU to us, to where, it was kind of just taking what the RSU had been insuring it for and calling it good. So again, as part of this entire process, understanding that there was some additional scrutiny that could be placed on the insurance that we have. So that's something that I'll work with MMA on. If we reduce the replacement valuation of the building itself, that reduces the amount that we have to pay, but you don't want to bring it down to a level to where if something happened to the building that we didn't have the coverage to replace it in whole.
Mm-hmm. Also on the fire trucks.
I ain't touching the fire trucks. I shipped that off to Brian, and he tells me what it is. I'm happy to take a stab at it, but David's on here as well. I don't know if someone smarter than me can talk fire trucks.
Okay, well, it's just that in the spreadsheet, it says the new cost, and the new costs are 300,000, 325, 350 for the trucks, which I can't believe that we could buy one of those today for those amounts of money, since we already bought one for more than that, right? Just a few years ago. That's neither here nor there, actually. The one that really sticks out is the it's the 450. Oh, it's in the fire department, but it's really the new ambulance. Never mind.
Yeah, under organization, you'll see that there's fire department, municipal, and rescue. The bulk of it is fire department, but a rescue is ambulance stuff.
So 213,770 is a number that I remember. Since we just paid it, right?
Yeah.
So here's another observation. We own $1 million worth of fire vehicles, and another $500,000 worth of fire equipment. So that's $1.5 million to operate a fire department for 1,500 people. That's plus it's the ongoing operating costs. Just an observation. Jan, Cheryl?
Motion.
Thing on insurance?
You need a motion for that?
Yeah, we do.
I'll move that we, commit to our insurance to MMA.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Once again, thank you and your staff for all the work on this.
And thank you to the department heads. They were very helpful through the whole process.
Great.
Always a good drill.
All in favor, Cheryl?
Aye.
Jan?
Aye.
Walter? Aye. All right. Now I've lost the agenda.
Correspondence, like I said, some adjustments on just correspondence. Don't need to get too long-winded in it, but we received a couple of things. One is that the DOT does their, I want to get this right, I don't want to say pesticide when it's herbicide or herbicide when it's pesticide. Ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. Spray routes for controlling small brush.
Foliage control.
Foliage control. Just wanted to communicate that that would be happening. I did ask about a timeline on that. It's the state, so you get this massive range. But late June, and they finish up by August and into mid-September. Not sure exactly when they're going to be coming through the town, but we will post that, what the route is. It's basically, it's the state roads. So it's Buttermilk, it's 73, there's a spur off of Dublin, goes down 73 and down 131. So that's their spray route on that. They do allow folks to communicate with DOT that if they, at their private residence, have accomplished that task and it's not necessary to spray, they are happy to not spray in those areas. That was primarily the reason of really kind of highlighting this, to let residents know that if they want to take care of this themselves and not have these chemicals sprayed on their property, that is something that they can do, but they have to communicate that with DOT prior to the trucks coming through.
No, hopefully they don't spray June 20th if that's the roadside cleanup on 73. Just noting.
That's duly, that would be unfortunate. The other communication was from Gartley and Dorsey. We had that Zoom meeting with Andrew Hedrick. We got some good feedback electronically from folks. Andrew and I went and met with one of the landowners that was going to be affected the most, got some notes from them. So Andrew has provided, and Gartley and Dorsey has provided, some revised draft plans. And so I'll be emailing the board probably tomorrow to see if you all want to set up an additional meeting prior to town meeting to go over this. We would do basically the same thing that we did last time, which is do it on Zoom, YouTube it, and then post on the website the revised plans and the YouTube video itself, so that folks could again comment. And this is in effort of having folks be as understanding of the project, or in its draft form anyway, prior to the question of funding the town's portion of it.
Okay, good plan.
Just in generally speaking, does the board want to review with Andrew this prior to town meeting? Or if you have no desire, I don't have to send out that email. So whatever you all want to do is fine.
Personally, I don't think you need to talk to Andrew further. He's just sent out new drawings. You've had good communication with him back and forth, so I don't need to talk to him again. He doesn't need to walk me through the drawings again.
Same here.
Yeah, I think the plan and the back and forth answers the questions about safety on the road. What about the somebody's fear about their well? Is that addressed to that abutter's satisfaction?
I mean, you kind of have to take the engineer's word on it to say it's to their satisfaction. when you talk about ledge removal, folks have preconceived notions of what that means. We tried to address that in the last meeting. The alterations aren't enough to really have changed anything around that area specifically. So again, it's a slower ledge removal. It's one that should not, barring some crazy unforeseen oddity, should not affect anyone's well. It should not affect their foundations. It should not affect any gas lines that they might have underground or above ground, from a tank to their house. So that's, but again, this is something that you run into in any kind of project where you're talking about rock or ledge removal. And folks have legitimate concerns. The technology has grown, and you can do it in such a way to where that's not a significant concern.
Okay, I agree that we don't need another one of those crawl throughs with Andrew. I didn't take a good hard look at the new plan today, but I will.
Yeah, but what I will do is I'll post it on the website again and send it out to the listserv, and anyone watching this meeting or future meetings, if you want, you can print them off yourself, but come to the town office if you have any questions. And we're still trying to solicit feedback. If folks have items that they want to bring up to us, happy to pass those along. I've been passing along everything I get to the board and to Andrew. And then just by the by, I don't know exactly when the comment came in, but John or Leslie Spear did say, do not leave MMA. There are multiple reasons. So I think he approves of your last motion. That's all that I had for communications.
Okay, Amy's looking for authorization for a purchase. Is that because it's non-budgeted?
Yeah, it's out of we bought 2 radios for the new ambulance. So we wanted to take them out of the checking account, that's ambulance checking account. And if it's over $500 purchase, we have to run it by you guys, so.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll move to approve the amount of $1,133.20 account for 2 new radios.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, Cheryl?
Aye.
Jan?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Oh, so has the new ambulance been out on a call?
Yes.
Yes, it has. We went on our first call yesterday with the new ambulance.
And only 6 calls for the month of May.
9, I think it was, right?
Or nine, right.
Everybody's still down. We're actually starting to pick up now. So hopefully, I mean, we don't want people to be sick, but you know.
But we don't want them to
To wait
stay home because they're afraid.
Yeah, and that's what's happening a lot. A lot of the calls that are coming through are people that are sicker than they should be. They should have been calling sooner. So, but
Unintended consequence of the lockdown.
yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Did you see that at the town meeting? There's no, like, they don't have to wear masks, and we can't take temperatures.
Right. Well, we can do that. We can take temperatures.
Yeah.
We just can't turn her away.
We just can't tell them to go away.
You can tell them that they got a temperature and they can make a decision to go away, but.
Right. Would you like to do that?
I don't want to get that close. That'd put me out of service for 14 days if they actually had a fever and had symptoms.
Oh, of course.
So I'm gonna be like way somewhere away from everybody.
So it's better not to know, I guess is what you're saying, huh?
For us, yes.
Amy, while you're still on, when we get to my report, remember we were talking about flag stuff and how the ambulance service wants to do flags. I don't know if the board wants to change anything. We'll be getting the new flagpole at some point in the not too distant future. But I don't know if the board had a chance to look at the town landing and how we display the flag down there, and if
With the light.
yeah, so it's not my call. So if they had anything that they wanted to provide on that.
Yeah, last year we left it up because the light, unless it was like windy or bad weather, and then we would take it down and bring it in. So is that the way we want to do it here forward? That it stays up unless it's bad weather or, okay,
It's lighted. There's no problem with leaving it up 24 hours a day.
okay. I just wanted to make sure that was okay.
You know, we need to, you know, you probably got to pay more attention to its condition.
Yeah.
If you're leaving up longer because it's going to wear out faster.
True.
What do you mean by new flagpole, Owen?
Here at the town office itself, the flagpole that we had was a fiberglass rig that my assumption is because of weed whacking around it.
Never mind. I'm confusing that with the the stanchion to put it in, because there are two of those, right?
Yes, so we now have a new stanchion that allows for better, we can tip down and raise up, and the flagpole that we'll be replacing it with won't be fiberglass, it will be aluminum, so it should last longer.
Why are there two?
So the old one you can no longer see. The old one is now buried underground. It is marked that it's there. Unbeknownst to me anyway, that little flagpole was poured in roughly 1 ton of concrete. And so when we went to try to just remove it to put the new flagpole in, it was a larger job than we anticipated. So because of the area beautification, we were able to cover that up. Cheryl did mark where the old flagpole was. And so if at some point in the future we want to remove that lump of concrete, we can, but it's fine where it is right now. And the new flagpole is approximately 2 feet away from where the old flagpole was.
Okay,
How do
thanks.
we do that flagpole?
We got the flagpole from Jerry, if that was your question. I didn't hear you quite right, but the flagpole stanchion itself was something that Jerry acquired through some of the caretaking that he does. He donated it to the town. There's a little bit more cleanup work that we need to do to it, but it's a good concrete block. It has the 2 poles that go up, and then you place the flagpole in the center, and it's got the 3 pins. So now you can lower it and raise it if there's an issue with the pulley at top. And that was kind of why we broke the other one. The rope got caught up in the pulley, and how do you get it down when the flag is stationary? So that was something that happened at the end of last year. And so we've been displaying the flag outside of the town office on the building itself. And so now we're trying to just get the better flagpole up now. And then one other quick thing, I just want to make sure I get the name right. The flag down at the landing was not in the best repair, and it was replaced by Ben Reed, who lives right next to the town landing. Him and his wife Dee took it upon themselves to get a new American flag and change that out. Ben is a 38-year Army and DoD veteran. We thanked him very much. I offered to reimburse him for the cost of the flag. He said that wasn't a problem, and that if we keep new flags on hand, he'll try to keep an eye on it. And if it needs to be replaced, he's happy to assist in that. But we do need to go down. He said that somehow there's a knot in the rope itself, and so it can't go all the way up. Yep. So he let me know about that today, and we'll try to go and make sure that the flag is as high up as it can be. but we very much thank him and his wife for that.
I can't get the motto of that.
Okay.
Weren't we flying a bicentennial flag from that pole?
We were, yeah, that kind of it was a little bit of the bicentennial add-on. I went and purchased some hardware for that. It wasn't the best hardware, and one of the grommets ripped off from it. So we can try to replace that here in the not too distant future.
I think that you have a volunteer who's going to sand those new, the new 2 prongs at the town, at the office for the
Yes.
flagpole.
Yep. There's some additional work
Yeah.
on that. Yep. So just going over my report, if you want to, just real quick. Jerry did have the crosswalks painted by Adolphson. They've been really great to work with over these last 2 years. They're very prompt. It's not overly expensive. They do a really good job. So we thank Jerry for that. He's been trying to work on patching up some areas. We just went over some stuff today about Westbrook Street, some other areas in town. People cycle things to this office, and then Jerry's just been awesome to work with. Actually, on that, did get some not so awesome news today. So I think I informed you all that the original intern that we had to split with Rockland got offered employment someplace else. And so he stopped doing that with Rockland. And then the Margaret Chase Smith Center sent us 4 new possible replacements. I reviewed those. There were 2 of them that I thought were pretty good standout folks. I cycled that over to Rockland and said, I'd like to see just one of these 2. It was then cycled over to their public works department to figure out which of the 2 we were going to go with. For whatever reason, possibly budgetary, possibly it was just a nice to have. Rockland is now declining to have an intern at all. So that put us in a little bit of a funky spot. Tom apologized. So I reached out to the Margaret Chase Smith Center after I talked with Tim Polkey down at St. George. The Chase Smith Center is okay with seeing if we can reorganize how we host the intern. We're not entirely sure if it's going to work with St. George, but there is an interest there and it is allowable. Because of the delay in this, it might actually be better for some of the budgetary constraints, both for us and for St. George. We wouldn't have the intern for the full 12 weeks, which means St. George might have to come up with less money, and then the budgeted amount, not yet approved, but that the South Thomaston did, starts to fall more in line with an equal share between the 2. Likely the intern would do a very similar thing for St. George as they do for us, the comprehensive road survey, trying to understand the public infrastructure and things like that, because you don't want to have someone who's doing just policy stuff try to figure out roads in one town and policy stuff in the other. So we're still working through that. No commitments by St. George at all, but Tim did indicate an interest. So I was going to be pretty bummed if we lost that intern, because one of the big things was to work with Jerry, understand as much about our town infrastructure as we can, get it all down in paper. It'll be helpful for budgetary reasons, helpful for paving, and also making sure that someone who's been working, what did we say last month, 38 years for the town, that we have acquired as much knowledge from that individual as we can. So more to come on that, just a little hiccup, we hope. Talked about Andrew and I meeting with some of the landowners. We got the sidewalks and the parking areas swept. I know that we're trying to be cognizant of budgetary constraints and not do unnecessary spending. However, as it relates to these travel paths, keeping loose debris in them is not good for public safety. So it seemed like the right thing to do. Recreation, definitely want to highlight, we approved that new mowing contract recently, and we put in there some additional care around the basketball and tennis courts and cutting back some of the smaller trees that have grown in and around the chain link fence. Wilson Landscape did do a really, really good job of cutting that back. And so I'm excited about that. Ed Modell, one of the local residents here, was working with us on that recreation, that land and water conservation grant for the resurfacing, the 50-50 grant that we put some money into the proposed budget about. So Ed put a lot of work into that. We very much appreciate that. He's cycled over the grant application with as much information as he can. McKed added some additional bits to that. And then Land and Water Conservation folks did push back the application due date, which is good because it's now after town meeting. And so we'll be able to include whether or not the citizens approved the matching funds for that, which would make us more competitive. Insurance coverage was covered. I don't know if we've brought this up to you all, but when Chelsea was the clerk back in Hope, she did have the credentials to issue license plates themselves. We didn't have that credentialization, probably not the right way of saying it, but we didn't have that within this town office previously. Bureau of Motor Vehicles does a bit of like a probationary period, and Chelsea's been awesome at submitting her reports and having no discrepancies. And so they've now granted her the privilege of issuing license plates out of this office itself, which will be a good benefit for the residents of the town. For certain instances, they won't have to go to Rockland to the Bureau anymore. So the only thing that's remaining is, within the COVID constraints, having Bureau folks come over here and do the transition. And then we'll be able to issue license plates here from the town office, which is,
Owen,
yep.
what's the volume of registration transactions? Do you have a sense for that?
It's been ticking up recently since we've opened up the town office. There was some.
Oh, I meant the online ones.
Oh, well, I mean, it all went down. That's for sure. Where people were putting cardboard cutouts on their license plates that just said COVID. So we did see we did see a continuation of excise revenue coming in. It was significantly lower than that same time last year, but it did maintain. Since we've opened the town office back up again and folks have become aware that these new allowances will be lifted, they've been coming in. And then June 11th, like I think I said earlier, is when the emergency declaration gets lifted. 30 days after that, July 11th, is when there's no longer flexibility on registration. So we should see a rebound, and July should be an exceptionally high auto excise month for us. Yeah, but people have been using the rapid renewal for a lot of different items.
Yeah, that's my real question.
Yep, no, they've been using it. That's basically how a lot of it got maintained. The revenue got maintained. But I mean, there was a drop, understandably so. You didn't have to have it. It was folks that were proactive, that wanted to do it, that were still keeping that revenue coming in. But yes, thousands, Chelsea's saying thousands and thousands of dollars through the online. And that's both with motor vehicles, boats, ATVs, hunting and fishing, etc.
Good.
Oh, the Lions Club, they want to resume meeting in the basement. They meet twice a month. I did ask them to not come in for their first June meeting, so that I could just have you all be aware of what our plan is. So at the end of June, they should be coming in. Some folks have been coming to continue working on the basement and cleaning that space out. And the constraints that will be put on them is that they will be required to just stay in the basement itself, use the doghouse door. In the event of an emergency, you've got 2 ingress and egress points. But asking them not to come up into the town office space not to use the bathrooms, and not to use the kitchen in the community room. They've been great about that. They don't have any problems with that. And that we basically said we'd see how it goes. We'll see what new directives come from the governor's office, and then reassess for July and their kind of meetings through there, and when we want to relax the kind of prohibition on them leaving the basement. And I think that's about it for my stuff.
Sorry, yeah. Treasurer's report we covered.
Correct.
Okay. So approval of the minutes from May 12th.
Yeah, I did we have minutes from May 4th from our joint meeting with the budget committee?
No, I think it was May 5th, and that falls on me. That was my responsibility. Clearly, you can tell the difference when it's Chelsea's job to do the minutes and when it's my job to do the minutes. I will get those to you as soon as possible.
It was a very short meeting, but we had our attorney there, and I will move to approve the minutes for Tuesday, May 12th and Tuesday, May 26th.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Cheryl?
aye.
Jan?
Aye.
Walter, aye. Okay. I've reached the end of my scroll, Owen. What's next?
Setting your next meeting, the next second Tuesday is July 14th.
Oh, I thought we'd already done that one.
I think we set it for the 7th
Oh, yeah.
because the 14th was the,
Right. Yep.
yeah, August would be the 11th if you want to set August.
Sounds good. I noticed that Cheryl's not writing that down.
No, it's on YouTube.
Even though I can't see her.
Is there any desire for the board to have a pre-town meeting check-in? I feel like we're at a good place, but if you all wanted to, we could schedule that for any time before the 30th.
Yeah, let's do that.
And then I think Penny has her hand up.
Could we
Go ahead.
maybe around the 25th, that Thursday?
That makes sense.
As the pre-town meeting one. Again, just to see if there's anything that,
Could we possibly, I mean, I can definitely do the 25th. I have some conflicts with Thursday evenings. I could do Thursday during the workday or Wednesday, the 24th at any time. I can do the Thursday, but you might hear crazy kiddos in the background.
yeah, are we talking about a select board meeting? Or are we just talking about a conversation concerning the,
I would probably notice it as a meeting, giving you all the option to vote on items if you want to. At this time, there's nothing that I anticipate you needing to do, but you would want to notice it as a meeting, giving you that option if something was to come up between now and town meeting. The only thing that I'll say is, if we did it on, say, the 24th, then that is 6 days prior to town meeting. Any sort of changes that need to be done need to be 7 days prior to town meeting. So I mean, again, not anticipating changes to things, but you have limited yourself if you don't do it at least 7 days prior to town meeting. So actually, Monday the 22nd would be the one that gives you the allowance to make any sort of decisions that you wanted to that evening, and us to notice them the next day, giving the town 7 full days of review.
I can't do the 22nd.
Yeah, I don't, if we're gonna do it that far in advance, I'm not really sure there's any value. I looked at this as kind of a last minute, get our ducks, make sure we're lined up, but
No, I mean, that makes sense. Go over the plan, go over the logistics, put it out there. Just letting you know that you just won't be able to make changes to the warrant at that time.
Oh, I wouldn't anticipate that.
me neither. We need to lock this thing down at some point.
All right, so how about during the day on that Thursday, Owen?
Perfect. Do you want to do 3 o'clock?
It's fine for me.
Fine with me.
Yep.
Book it, Dano.
Got it.
And did Penny have her hand up, did you say?
She did. Yep.
I much appreciate the tab on the homepage for the minutes. That's great. I think that makes it much easier to find them. I was wondering if February meeting minutes were ever approved, and if so, could they be posted along with April's? I think April's were approved at the May 5th meeting, or the May 12th meeting, sometime in May. We only have January and 2 March meeting minutes up for this year.
I've made a great big minutes in my notes, and I will jump on that tomorrow and try to get more of those put up.
And one more thing, I was wondering where we're going to have a live town meeting, when the select board meetings will be live again. Although I'd love to see them recorded and posted to YouTube. I think that's a wonderful resource. But I was wondering when we can all be in the same room again together.
Yeah, I'm ready.
The reason why is it's even, I feel like I'm taking advantage of being on the agenda to be able to participate. And, the little chat box on YouTube isn't the best way to type in your thoughts and participate in the meeting.
I mean, I think we should give serious thought and target the July meeting as being in the community room. But I do want to make sure that we're all comfortable and that we do the right thing to make ourselves safe.
I'll bring the masks.
Are you still hanging them out there in front of the library, Penny?
They're under the overhang by the Historical Society door, and I recently passed 700.
I think I have to have one of your masks.
I will make you a lobster mask.
I would appreciate it. Thank you so much. Okay, so we should discuss and confirm that.
But I would love to see the meetings be recorded and posted to YouTube if that wasn't a hardship to do. I think it's a wonderful resource and a good way to go back and double check what you think you heard. And I
agree with that. Owen, thoughts?
Yep, because I've thought about this, and if the board wants to continue doing this, there's really only 2 expenses to the town, one of which I can continue to work on and see if we can mitigate. One is the monthly subscription for Zoom. It's already linked, so the YouTube is free, but we link through Zoom to the YouTube. I can work on just having it be direct to YouTube if we're doing it in person, and that would save on that monthly subscription for Zoom. And then the only other thing, I mean, I have my laptop, that's how we've been doing it. It's mobile, would be a better microphone system because not everyone's going to be in close proximity to the mics. And so we would want to set something up to be able to capture the audio a little bit better. And I would basically just set the laptop and the camera at a place to capture the board. You know, we're not going to be at a place to where we're toggling back and forth like some other meeting spaces where public comment, you know, they'll be able to hear it. But yeah, it's going to be minimal cost to do that, and something that's not going to be overly difficult.
Yeah, personally, I like it. I like the idea of recording and broadcasting.
And I think you'll be able to do that via our phone with a Bluetooth. In other words, use that as a microphone.
Maybe. I mean, I am not a tech guy.
Don't ask me, but I've seen it done.
Yeah, I'm sure we can figure that out.
If I may, I am also not techie, but I am the tech support for the Historical Society, which is a scary thing. But we do have a PA system that we hook up to speakers. And I don't know if that's something you would want for the annual town meeting, or if it would be of any help for YouTube recording.
Yeah, definitely let's liaison on that, and then that might actually be helpful as some component of this upcoming town meeting. I'll take all the you know, free items that I can to increase, you know, what people can hear and how it's broadcast. And then one quick thing, I think, sir, your memory is pretty good, and sorry if I overlooked it. Chelsea's been reviewing as she works on the minutes. She has confirmed that there's a vote on setting the meeting date, but from her review, we didn't, I guess, do the move second on the warrant itself. So just, we could be wrong, and she's still reviewing it now, but belt and suspenders, can we just do another quick motion on the warrant as amended?
Yeah, I don't think we did vote on it either. So, yeah, I would move that we accept the warrant as amended.
Second.
You're muted, Walter.
I just got told I was muted. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, Cheryl,
Aye.
Jan,
Aye.
aye. And you'll let us know when we should come sign.
Yes, I'll probably just drive it around. It doesn't take me very long.
Okay, whatever you choose.
I will come up and sign. You won't catch me. I'll be
Perfect.
driving around circles.
And I'll probably be by on Thursday anyway, in case you have other things.
Doubly perfect.
Maybe you're
Cheryl come down in the Kubota. And there were an awful lot of people that contributed to that planting and digging and whatever on
Yeah.
Saturday. And I know the organizers are busy writing thank you notes, but I suspect that if they were going to not, and it's a team effort, you don't single out individuals necessarily, but I got to believe that if they were going to single out a most valuable player, it would be the Queen of the Kubota, who put in 3 consecutive 8 to 10 hour days driving that Kubota around. And it was fun to watch, Cheryl. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Cheryl. Looks great.
But you're welcome. It was another team effort, and I had fun.
And then the last thing on that, I sent out the notification that we got the new ambulance. I held off on sending something out on the community gardening day. I'm waiting for some additional pictures of the volunteers. I had some pictures of the end result, and then I do have some pictures, aerial pictures from a drone, but waiting for some pictures of the volunteers themselves, and then I'll send that out on the listserv and put it on the website.
Right.
You know, Penny, since you're still on, it just reminded me, did we go forward at all with the community garden at Guilford Butler? Or is that on hold?
Yes, we're awaiting the tilling to be done, but we've got plants and greenhouses and ready to roll. Fencing posts have been donated, hose. So as soon as we're tilled, we'll be in business.
Terrific, terrific.
I will send Owen a notice about that he can share with the
Yeah, if you want
electronic.
to have any of the town resources for any of these community days, for us to put it out there to the listserv, broaden out as many volunteers as you can get, please just communicate with that, with the office, and we're happy to push that out for you.
Certainly the roadside cleanup day should.
Yes,
Yeah.
that will go out tomorrow.
I was gonna say to Penny, you might touch base with Sandy Retzlaff regarding the black gold that's remaining by the doghouse.
Oh, great.
Just, it's not mine to offer at all, but I would check with her and Barbara. They were honcho in this project.
I will, thank you.
Couple other things, Walt. Just a reminder for the July meeting is that will be a lot of appointments will be coming up at that time. Even if you stagger them, there's a lot of them that are going to run out, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, and let's check and double check, so I don't appoint somebody to a position that doesn't exist again.
It'd be our normal April meeting where we appoint everybody or reappoint everybody.
Is there such a thing as an executive meeting on Zoom? No.
I don't think so.
I wouldn't say on Zoom, but if we need to have one, maybe we need to social distance but get together.
Yeah, I just want to I want to make a recommendation. So that was all.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Are we done?
Any other business, or is there a motion to adjourn?
Again, I bring up signing the warrant, the financials. We're gonna authorize Jan to continue that, aren't we? Or we did that last time.
Yeah, I have been doing it, Cheryl. I usually
Yeah.
do Thursday evenings,
Okay,
but we'll all have to sign the real warrant this time.
Right. We have to sign the something else that needs all of our signatures too, Owen, is that correct?
Yes, the recommitment of the taxes.
Recommitment of the taxes, okay. All right. See you guys in a couple weeks. Is there a motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn. Lame duck. Whack.
And a second.
All in favor? Jan,
Aye.
Cheryl. Aye. All right.
Stay safe.
Be safe, everyone. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Penny. Thank you, David. Thank you, Owen.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you, buddy.